Quote, "There is nothing unique about the wanton violence of the Destroyer. All demons hunger for slaughter, and they all seek the end of all things. They all want to tear down the works of the gods and reduce all things to ruin." Where Yeenoghu differs, however, is in his ability to turn the business of killing into a breathtaking spectacle. With him, it is a form of art, if you can stomach the screams and noxious odors issuing from the dead. Yeenoghu is special because he embodies killing. He has few ambitions beyond the visceral thrill of rending the soft flesh of his enemies and drinking deep the hot blood from their bodies. He craves nothing more than the utter defeat of all those who stand against him, and is relentless in his pursuit of feeding the emptiness of his existence with the frantic screams of those he slays. Butchery is the provender of Yeenoghu, and his single-minded pursuit of annihilation makes him a dangerous force in the infinite layers of the abyss. End quote. Today, we're going to talk about Yeenoghu, the demon prince of butchery, the ruler of ruin, the lord of savagery, the destroyer, and the prince of all gnolls. But before we do that, this video is brought to you by HelloFresh. Deliver high quality, fresh from the farm ingredients right to your door. There's just no need to leave your house anymore. No grocery shopping, no trying to figure out what to do with your dinner. Leave those worries to the dark past. Because today, by signing up with HelloFresh, you can select from over 50 different chef-curated recipes and have the ingredients delivered right to you to make them. All in already proportioned quantities and with easy to follow steps so that you can make the high quality meals that you know you deserve. Stop it with the ramen noodles, okay? Just cut it out with all the microwave food. Make fresh meals instead. This is literally the easiest way to do it. They give you the exact packets for everything that you need, the exact amount of vegetables that the recipe requires. There's no need to throw extra food away or anything like that. And if you are overwhelmed, you can even pick the easy recipes to do. I mean, it's designed to be easy. Real fresh food, again, made extremely easy. Plus, HelloFresh is currently doing this thing where if you sign up right now, you get free appetizers for life. Yup. You will get free appetizers on every box that you order with your subscription. If you were ever wondering about trying it out, this is the time. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Go to my link in the description and use my code MrRexJewel10 and receive 10 free meals plus free appetizers for life. One appetizer item per box while subscription is active if you are in the US. The link and code are valid in all countries and the respective local discount will apply. So once again, check out the link in the description and use my code to get that discount. But now, back to the video. So who is Yeenoghu? Yeenoghu is a demon lord that resides in the Abyss, though he is better known as the patron lord of all gnolls. The reason why gnolls are the way they are, bloodthirsty, ravenous, murderous, is because of him, whose influence taints and commands them. It wasn't always like that, though. The gnolls originally followed a god named Gorelick, who was, well, the god of gnolls. Much how trolls of Vaprak, goblins of MacLeod, and dorks of Grumsh, so did the gnolls once had Gorelick. The stories of what happened differed depending on the teller, and the stories are, of course, ancient, but in all of them, Yeenoghu slowly poached the gnolls to become his servants by offering them more than what Gorelick was able to give them, most notably, power and strength. Gorelick wasn't a particularly powerful god, and his deific portfolio wasn't particularly impressive. He only had power in the domains of hyenas and the Hunt, so it was in fact him who taught the gnolls how to bond with those hyenas, but he wasn't able really to grant much else. Eventually, after Yeenoghu grew strong enough, Gorelick was ultimately slain and his essence was absorbed, allowing him, Yeenoghu, to claim full dominion over the gnolls. Gorelick is believed to still exist in a limited and near-powerless capacity, but for all intents and purposes, he was made irrelevant in the cosmic war for power. Nobody really knows where Yeenoghu came from. It's not like he was spawned from belief like many gods are, since he wasn't a god in the first place. Some claim that he was a mortal, a null in fact, who simply sought to supplant his very own god. Most, however, claim Yeenoghu was a primordial, one of the beings who fought the gods eons ago for control over creation, who eventually made his dominion deep within the infinite layers of the abyss. What matters, though, is that the gnolls are now his willing vassals, and he has become one of the most influential demon lords of the world. Yeenoghu looks like a 12-foot-tall gnoll. He's described as skinny, almost emaciated, with flesh stretched taut across his face, his fur patchy with several places where the fur won't even grow, and with pustules that seemingly resemble leprosy, growing all across sections of his skin. He decorated himself with the patchwork of different armors and shields and with the flayed skins of his enemies. His weapon is called Butcher, and it is a flail with 3 spiked heads. The flail is constructed from the bones of an ancient god Yeenoghu once slayed long ago. The handle is the thigh bone of that god, wrapped in the god's flesh. The chains are made of adamantine, and the barbed heads are said to bleed divine ichor every time it is used. The ichor is said to be the tears and the blood of that fallen deity. And those struck by Butcher become paralyzed and confused, the result of the dark magic endowed upon those cursed spikes. So what does he do? Well, Yeenoghu kills. When it comes to desires and goals, Yeenoghu is very straightforward, probably more so than any other demon lord we have covered. He literally wants nothing but to slaughter and create senseless destruction. He takes pleasure in causing fear and panic in those he kills, and to bring misery by destroying the beloved things of those he torments. There is never any speaking with Yeenoghu. No parley, no surrender, no torture, no interrogation, nothing. There is only slaughter and mayhem and nothing else. When faced with an enemy, Yeenoghu charges forward in a mad, cackling bloodlust, sometimes with a weapon in hand, other times with just tooth and claw. It matters not to him. All that matters is the everlasting hunger he feels. But Yeenoghu is not interesting for what he himself does, because he really doesn't do anything other than fulfill the need for carnage. He is interesting because of his particular strategy and how he seeks dominion over the multiverse. You see, every demon lord has their strategies, their grand plans, and some are simply more effective than others. Yeenoghu has a particular angle that makes him unique and terrifyingly effective, and that is, he spends a considerable amount of time and effort in empowering his cultists, his followers. It's something demons generally despise doing. He can do this largely as a result of having a large species that, for lack of a better word, consider him a god. The gnolls, in this case. Out of all of the demon lords, Yeenoghu is the most active in the material plane, giving omens to his followers, granting them all power, directing them on what to do and where to go, and so much more. Yeenoghu's ultimate goal is to destroy all that exists, and to create a barren wasteland behind, one where his gnolls can scavenge and hunt across the world. But interestingly, a lot of what drives him and his actions are ultimately for the gnolls, who he seeks to elevate and empower. This is, again, exceedingly rare amongst demon lords who find it impossible to care for anything other than themselves. So let's talk about all of these rituals to Yeenoghu and the cultists that follow him. Yeenoghu is not picky about who follows him or who he grants power to. All gnolls are his children, and when other species are concerned, so long as they perform the rites and act in the savage manner he demands, all are welcome to partake in his hunger. Quote, Yeenoghu's cultists are folk who lack all hope and have descended into nihilism. One might have suffered a tremendous personal loss, been banished from his home, or been the victim of a terrible betrayal. Whatever the reason, the would-be cultist is left isolated and abandoned, making it vulnerable to Yeenoghu's teachings. The creature's thoughts and dreams are plagued by visions sent by Yeenoghu. the promise of ultimate power, fueled by acts of brutality, tempt and tormented. Most folk ascribe these feelings to a fleeting bout of depression or madness and are able to resist the call for violence, but a few cannot. For these rare individuals, the true lure of Yeenoghu's promises lies not in the power they offer, but in the deep sense of belonging they create. Those that are swayed by this offer consider themselves gnolls in mind and deed, and soon set out to commit the first atrocities in Yeenoghu's name. End quote. It is interesting that some even believe that his gifts are so readily available that many cultists who make sacrifices to Yeenoghu's name don't even know who they are venerating in the process, only in the results of those macabre rituals. These rituals usually involve the slow torture of victims and culminates in the devouring of their flesh. There is almost always eating involved in most services done in the name to this demon lord, many of which involve, of course, cannibalism, but the cannibalism part is never what's important. What is important is the consumption of flesh and the losing oneself in the act. It also includes blood sacrifices and the slaughtering of enemies, all done, of course, under the moonlight. Some sects of cults even perform a howling to the moon as part of these rituals. Temples to Yeenoghu are usually located far from civilized areas, typically in some rocky wilderness, such as a cave or a rocky outcropping. The altar would be made out of a crude slab of stone where the victims would be placed and where the chants would be sung. Communion with the demon lord happens through the reading of blood splatters, as the blood takes on forms that can be interpreted by the cultists. Entrails could also be read or eaten in order to induce dreams, or to receive the gifts of Yeenoghu. All gnolls, as well as cultists who pledge themselves to this demon lord, become one with Yeenoghu's hunger. Quote, Yeenoghu imparts to the minds of his followers an unquenchable, supernatural hunger, both for violence and for the flesh of intelligent creatures. A gnoll feels a constant, knowing demand for blood and destruction that abates only when it kills and eats intelligent creatures. Other prey might provide temporary sustenance, but it does nothing to quell Yeenoghu's hunger. End quote. The hunger is described as an intoxicating experience, one that grants fulfillment, purpose, and a deep sense of belonging. Belonging in the sense that the hunger is shared by all, and by Yeenoghu himself, a hunger that all seek to quench in order to satiate one another. Quote, the first gift is hunger. It is his blessing. It is our call to bring death. The second gift is death. Death proves our strength. Death purges our fear. The third gift is fear. We fear we will fail him. We fear the onset of hunger. End quote. Once the hunger gets a hold of you, there is no longer an escape. It is a form of madness that cannot be outrun. You will seek to devour others, and not with forks or with knives, not cooked or prepared, but in raw, bloody gore. Such is the same madness that befalls animal wildlife in the presence of these rituals, or in the presence of the demon lord himself. Those who follow Yeenoghu are characterized by the putridness and foulness of not just their character, but their clothes. The demon lord demands his followers to not bathe or clean themselves, and to allow the blood and flesh of their victims to splash upon their garments at will. These servants often smear feces, rotten meat, and anything else foul to produce the most disgusting sights and smells they can muster, as the most physically foul yield the highest rankings within these cults. Going back now, out of the cultists and into Yeenoghu himself, Yeenoghu occupies the 422nd layer of the Abyss, a realm which is called, uncreatively enough, Yeenoghu's realm. It is sometimes called differently by other demon lords, but that's what Yeenoghu and the gnolls under his domain would name it. Yeenoghu's realm, to put it simply. Most of the realm is a giant savanna, where gnolls and other carnivorous beasts compete against each other for food, and where slaves are hunted down for sport. A low-hanging red sun gives the area a slightly red hue, and a large towering edifice serves as Yeenoghu's mansion, which is said to be as big as a human city. This structure, this mansion of the Demon Lord, has great stone rollers underneath it, which allowed it to be pulled by slaves and demons to have it move. Doing that, Yeenoghu's lair is moved across the realm, at the cost of losing countless slaves in the process, all who die from treacherous and painful fatigue, but who are later eagerly and quickly replaced. Quote, "The seat of Yeenoghu's power is a nameless lair deep in the abyss. Known as Yeenoghu's realm, it is a wasteland. Much of the area is parched savanna covered in brittle brown grass, punctuated by semi-mobile plants with poisonous barbs and choking tendrils. The skies are a sickening shade of green, and the sun is a bloody red wound spreading its crimson stain across the horizon. Bounding this perilous realm is a vast jungle of gnarled trees with jaundiced leaves and toxic fauna. To the north runs a barren range of brown mountains which are poked with mines where the Destroyer's servants struggle to pull priceless ore from the monster-filled deeps. The mountains tumble into a vast sea clotted with flotillas and wreckage. Infested by ghouls, the sea also has cannibals and exiles who have been driven mad by their isolation and by the horrors living in the murky water's deeps. In all, Yeenoghu's realm is a nightmare world of want and suffering, which makes it a place suited to this vile and bestial master." End quote. In the Abyss, Yeenoghu is not really known as a particularly powerful demon lord, at least not when compared to the other grander forces of the plane, such as Orcus or Demogorgon or Grast. His influence is far grander on the material plane in this particular case than it is in the Abyss. This comes from many reasons. His focus, of course, on the material plane, the fact that there is a higher priority on gnolls as servants rather than demons, the latter of which are more numerous and powerful in the Abyss, and of course his disdain for deep strategy, focusing more on straightforward and mindless cruelty in combat. Even still, however, in spite of all of these setbacks, Yeenoghu remains competitive within the plane. Quote, "Few, aside from other more powerful demon lords, dare challenge him, or the reckless legions clamoring to his banners, because his forces are nigh unstoppable. And if Yeenoghu's forces could maintain coherency for more than a single campaign, he might have emerged long ago as the true master of the Abyss. As history has shown, though, Yeenoghu is his own worst enemy, and he is frequently the cause of his own undoing." End quote.